All right, guys, Wes here. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to be talking about the future of God of War Ragnarok on the PC. This is by far the next biggest update for the game after the New Game Plus update this spring. So I'll be going over the likelihood of if, or rather when, it's going to release on that platform, as well as the potential system specs we can look out for with the PC port. Along with that, we're going to be talking about the potential PC exclusive features, modding support, and the store launchers that it will likely release on. Now, along with that, I'd like to talk about the God of War show for Amazon Prime Video, as we do have a bit of controversy surrounding the casting of Kratos. Christopher Judge has been talking, and he is pretty adamant about reprising the role as Kratos in the Amazon Prime TV show, which, let's be honest, we all agree with him, but we do have some news to talk about regarding that. Real quick, guys, I'm giving away a PS5 for 90,000 subscribers, and this is the last chance for you to enter the 90K giveaway before I pick the winner, so definitely make sure you're entered. The full details will be later on in the video. Now, believe it or not, PC gaming is the biggest market in the entire industry, largely thanks to its accessibility and customization. There are a lot of places in the world where PC gaming is far bigger than any console market, and it's even pretty close in places like the US. It's no secret that this market is ripe for profit, and Microsoft kind of set the standard for integrating the PC market into their gaming battle plan with Xbox Game Pass as well as Xbox Play Anywhere. A few years back, Microsoft completely ditched the idea of true Xbox exclusives, and they've been releasing all of their first-party games on the PC as well. Sony was obviously hesitant to this, but they seemingly started to catch on, as a number of major first-party PlayStation games have been ported to PC, specifically in the last few years, and that number seems to be drastically increasing with time. A while back, the head of PlayStation promised a whole slate of PC ports in the future, so it's clear that Sony is going full steam ahead with embracing the PC marketplace, and if the patterns and rumors are to be believed, God of War Ragnarok is likely going to get a PC port in the very near future. So in this video, we're going to be diving into everything we know about God of War Ragnarok's PC port, including when to expect it, what it will include, and why it's going to be a big deal. Now, in case you've been living under a rock or you mainly played God of War 2018 on PC, God of War Ragnarok is the sequel to the 2018 game and has quickly become one of Sony's biggest success stories. In fact, God of War Ragnarok is currently the fastest selling first-party Sony game of all time, which many people have attributed it to being also one of the first multi-platform release in the history of God of War. According to Sony, God of War Ragnarok sold 5.1 million units in its first week, and 82% of the copies were sold on the PS5, and at least 82% of those were digital sales. Ragnarok also managed to sell 51% faster than the previous entry did, which is saying a lot since the 2018 game was such a massive hit. Ragnarok is a runaway success for Sony, and they're obviously wanting to capitalize on as much of it as possible. Like I said earlier, Ragnarok is the first God of War game to launch on multiple platforms, and since Sony has been opening up to the idea of launching games on the PC, it seems very likely that Ragnarok is going to get a third version in the near future. The days of exclusive Sony games are coming to a close, and God of War Ragnarok is not far behind from being one of the latest first-party PlayStation games to get ported to a non-Sony platform. God of War's series refresh launched in early 2018 on the PS4 and got a next-generation patch for the PS5 a few years later. However, it wasn't until early 2022 that the PC port finally hit Steam, marking a roughly 4-year wait between the two versions. Some people have suggested that this is going to mean PC players will have to wait until 2026 for God of War Ragnarok to hit Steam or the Epic Games Store, but I don't really agree. God of War 2018 was released in a time when Sony wasn't even thinking about putting their games on PC. However, a number of games since then have been ported to the platform, and the wait has been getting shorter and shorter. Returnal is set to launch on PC next year, making it roughly a 2-year wait between the PS5 and the PC. Miles Morales also had roughly a 1.5-year wait between the two versions, and Death Stranding's PC port came out less than a year after its PS4 launch. Although some people argue that that game is not a first-party exclusive, I tend to disagree. Pretty soon, Forspoken, one of Sony's big exclusives for 2023, is going to launch on the PS5 and PC at the same time, which will be one of the first times a major single-player Sony game gets a day and date launch. The point I'm making is that just because God of War 2018 took 4 years to come out on PC doesn't mean Ragnarok is going to be in the same boat. In fact, I think Ragnarok's PC version is going to follow in the same footsteps as Miles Morales or Returnal or The Last of Us Part 1, as Sony's PC strategy has gotten much more aggressive since the release of the 2018 game's PC port. And honestly, I would attribute one of the reasons that Sony has been so aggressive on the PC is because of how good God of War and Spider-Man's release on the PC was for them. So when exactly am I personally expecting the PC port to come out? This is where things kind of depend on what happens next for Ragnarok. More specifically, it kind of depends on when we're getting the New Game Plus release this spring, or if we somehow miraculously get a DLC pack for God of War Ragnarok, which, if you didn't know, in a recent video we talked about the possibility of a DLC for Ragnarok, possibly starring Atreus on a new adventure that will sort of flesh out the Norse world before we leave it behind for God of War 6. In an interview, the game's director stated that there was no plans for a DLC pack at this time, but he left the door open for the future. Obviously, with how insanely successful Ragnarok has been for Sony, I find it hard to believe that they're not going to try to capitalize on it more, especially since we're going to be waiting at least another 4 to 5 years until the next God of War game. If that ends up being the case, I also think it's a possibility that there will be some kind of director's cut or game of the year edition a little bit after that, but I may be getting a little ahead of myself there. The point is, Ragnarok doesn't currently have DLC in the pipeline, unless the director is just trying to keep us off their scent. But if it does end up being some kind of DLC or a game of the year or director's version of the game, that will likely push the PC port of the game back further than before. The PC version of God of War Ragnarok will likely include all of the content to that point, since it's common courtesy in the gaming industry to release a late port with all of the available content. So if Ragnarok isn't going to be getting an expansion, I think the PC port will be announced in the next few months and then released in late 2023 or early 2024. However, if we do end up getting some kind of Ragnarok DLC, some miraculous DLC, the PC port likely won't come out until mid to late 2024, so the porting team has more than enough time to finish up the additional content. It's also worth pointing out that Sony may want to keep the game off the PC platform for a little bit longer, since this has been the first really big system seller that they've had up to this point. Games like Spider-Man Miles Morales and Demon's Souls have been effective at getting people over to the PS5, but since most first-party games have been perfectly playable on the PS4, there hasn't been a ton of incentive to go out and buy a new system, especially since you would most likely have to pay more than market price in order to get one from a reseller. But then again, there's been a lot of PlayStations available on PlayStation Direct, so you can probably find one pretty easily. Ragnarok is the first time a PlayStation game came out. They really pushed people to upgrade for the PS5, which there is such a giant portion of the sales on the later generation hardware over the previous one. Despite the PS4 being more available than the PS5, Ragnarok is serving as a system seller, and for that reason, they may want to keep it off of the PC platform for a little while longer than they otherwise would. I have no doubt in my mind that the PC port is eventually coming out, but since Ragnarok is actually pushing people to go buy a PS5 instead of putting that money towards a PC, they may want to hold on for a few more months, especially before they actually reveal the next PlayStation console that will likely be the PS5 Slim, which I've got a feeling is going to release this year, but more on that in another video. So if the initial plan was to release God of War Ragnarok port about 12 months after the initial launch, the PS5 sales may actually provoke an 18 to 24 month instead, which would put the PC release date somewhere in the mid to late 2024. And again, this will likely get pushed back even further if there is potentially DLC coming. That being said, I don't think Ragnarok is going to the PC any later than 2024 because Sony is pretty dedicated to this new PC porting strategy, and I can't see them justifying holding on to it for 2 more years after the initial launch. Now, if we take a look at another PlayStation game that released in September, we have The Last of Us Part 1 that released on PS5, and that game is set to release on PC after 6 months, which will be March 3rd, 2023. So it could be that they're going to wait 6 months to get God of War Ragnarok on the console, but only time will tell. Next up, I want to talk about the PC specs that we could likely see for God of War Ragnarok. Now, this is obviously just speculation. We don't have any confirmation that God of War is coming to PC, but we do kind of have an idea of how it could potentially run. So for the recommended requirements, memory would be 16 gigs, graphics card an NVIDIA RTX 2060 or a Radeon 5700 XT, the CPU an Intel i5 6600K or a Ryzen 2600, and then for the minimum requirements, 8 gigs of memory, a GTX 1060 or an RX 580 with either an i5 4670 or a Ryzen 5 1600. It's obviously difficult to pin down what kind of specs you would need for God of War Ragnarok on the PC, but if we actually take a look at the specs of the PS5 and the PS4 respectively, then we can kind of have an idea of how it will run on the PC and what kind of specs you would need. Next up, let's talk about the biggest news for the day, and that is the controversy surrounding the God of War TV show for Prime Video, specifically the casting of Kratos. So there was an article posted on Twitter that actually stated that Dave Bautista should play Kratos in the God of War Prime Video show, to which Christopher Judge jokingly quote tweeted it, quoting the article on comicbook.com, which I gotta say, the comicbook.com article got completely flooded with everyone with outcry and support that Christopher Judge should play Kratos. But Chris Judge actually retweeted it and said, "It's been said that I can't read a room," which is making fun of how long his speech was during the Game Awards, which was pretty long. But in my opinion, I say, Slay King, you deserve as much time that you want on the podium, and I don't think anyone is going to try to stop you because you are freaking Kratos at the end of the day. He was obviously making fun of the article. He was joking, and he obviously doesn't mean any ill will or any ill intent. I think he's just happy to play Kratos in both God of War games, both critically acclaimed games where he actually won the Game of the Year for his work as Kratos in God of War Ragnarok. But he then followed up with another tweet that said, "Don't get me wrong, I think Dave Bautista is great, but period, which is him basically saying he's the God of War boy. He should definitely be playing Kratos in this new Amazon Prime show. He's done TV show work before, and it's not like he's not used to playing Kratos already, especially with working on both of the games. So I'll say this right now, I will be severely disappointed if Prime Video picks anyone other than Christopher Judge to play Kratos in the upcoming show. He is the perfect fit. He is Kratos. He is the God of War. And if they decide to give it to another actor, I think that is a big L, and I will not respect the show as much as I probably would have if they just let Christopher Judge just be Chris Judge. And it's not like he doesn't look the part already with a little bit of makeup and a little bit of beard growing. There's no doubt in my mind that they'll be able to morph him a little bit, get a little bit more yoked for the show to reprise his role as Kratos in the Prime Video show. But I'm curious to hear what your thoughts on the topic are. I know I am personally passionate about getting Chris Judge this part. I personally think he's earned it, but I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Getting back into the topic of God of War Ragnarok on the PC, I want to talk about modding briefly, which is arguably one of my favorite parts of God of War 2018. Modding is going to make God of War last for even longer, with all of the awesome visual mods to the complete overhaul mods that are currently in development for God of War 2018. I think God of War Ragnarok is going to be a big hit on PC with modders, and I can't wait to see what kind of work they do. Now I'm guessing we'll get some confirmation of the PC port for God of War Ragnarok in the next few months, likely short after the New Game Plus announcement and update, and then it will likely launch by the end of 2023 or perhaps the first few months of 2024. Sony's PC strategy is getting more aggressive, like I said, and I am more than confident that Ragnarok will also be getting one as well. The only question at this point is when, and hopefully we get some kind of official confirmation on it by the summer, because I know a lot of us are eager to know when we're going to be getting more God of War content, even if it's just the PC port and New Game Plus and nothing else new. But yeah, guys, that is going to wrap it up with this video. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel with your notifications on, and don't forget to enter the PS5 giveaway for 90,000 subscribers. To enter, all you have to do is subscribe to the channel, comment your Twitter handle, follow me on Twitter, and send me proof that you're following to my Twitter or my Discord. I'll also be doing a bonus entry if you follow my Twitch and join my Discord. All of the links are in the description or the pinned comment. The winner will be announced at 90,000 subscribers. Thanks for watching. This has been Wes, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video.